From Washington, this is VOA News. Coming up, inspecting Iran's nuclear facilities and the disputed East China Sea. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Norman. The head of the UN Nuclear Agency says it will take some time for his organization to prepare to monitor a landmark nuclear deal between Iran and 6 world powers. International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Yuki Amano said Thursday the UN agency needs some time to analyze the implications of the new duties on its funding and staffing.
We are now looking at the way in which the elements of the agreement relevant to the agency could be put into practice. This will take some time. I will consult the board as soon as possible when our analysis has been completed.
The agreement signed on Sunday in Geneva calls for Iran to limit or freeze sensitive parts of its nuclear program, to do that for 6 months in return for limited relief from international sanctions. No start date has been a deal on the deal has been announced. IAEA inspectors will monitor Iran's compliance. Syria says its troops have recaptured a strategic town seized by Islamist rebels last week near the border with Lebanon. Syrian state media said government forces took control of Deirtia on Thursday after driving out jihadists belonging to the al-Nusra Front and the Islamic State of Iraq in the Levant. Deirtia is located north of Damascus. It sits along a key highway between Damascus and the central city of Homs. Japan and South Korea say their aircraft flew through China's newly declared air defense zone over the East China Sea, following the example of U.S. aircraft. Both Japan and South Korea said Thursday the military planes flew through the controversial zone without complying with Beijing's newly declared rules. China analyst Denny Roy of the Hawaii-based East-West Center tells VOA China's move might have backfired.
If one of the possible objectives the Chinese had was to sort of drive a wedge between the United States and Japan, clearly that was not successful, because one of the outcomes has been not only a reaffirmation of U.S. commitment to defend Japan if Japanese forces come under direct attack in connection with a Senkaku scenario, but also to put the United States and Japan firmly on the same side in strongly opposing the Chinese imposition of this air defense zone.
China declared an air defense identification zone over disputed waters in the East China Sea last weekend. Canadian Broadcasting Corporation is reporting that Canada allowed the U.S. National Security Agency to conduct widespread surveillance during the 2010 Group of 8 and Group of 20 summits in Toronto. The report cites documents from former NSA contractor Edward Snowden, who is wanted by American authorities on espionage charges. CBC report says the U.S. turned its Ottawa embassy into a security command post that spied during the summits with coordination with a Canadian intelligence partner. European Union summit opened on Thursday in the Lithuanian capital, overshadowed by Ukraine's decision not to sign a landmark trade deal with the bloc. Heads of government and other officials from the 28 EU member states are at the 2-day summit for talks on the bloc's expansion into former Soviet Eastern European countries. Pat Cox is a former European Parliament president.
Ukraine is a sovereign state, and it's entitled to make up its own mind how it should proceed, and it has decided to take time out.
The summit was expected to mark the signing of a historic agreement to expand a free trade zone between the EU and Ukraine, but Kyiv suspended that deal last week in favor of increasing ties with Russia. Americans marked the annual Thanksgiving Day holiday on Thursday with meals, family visits, and bargain shopping. It's a regular. In Washington, President Obama gave thanks for the men and women serving in the U.S. military.
We give thanks for all our men and women in uniform and for their families, who are surely missing them very much today. We're grateful for their sacrifice, too.
The holiday is a time for giving thanks, often at family gatherings with feasts that center on turkeys and an array of traditional side dishes, as well as desserts. Americans across the nation also gather for religious services and sports and just being together. While Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Pope Francis, was known to sneak out at night and break bread with the homeless, part of his aim to share the plight of the poor, well, he's still doing that. In fact, he's doing it through a special office at the Vatican, the Almsman's Office. Get more news by going to our website at voanews.com.